Hi, today we're going to be talking about two-way tables. So this addresses 8th grade standard DSP-4, and we're going to be looking at investigating bivariate categorical data in two-way tables. We're going to organize bivariate categorical data in two-way tables, interpret that data in two-way tables using relative frequencies, and explore patterns of possible associations between the two categorical variables. At the end of this, we should be able to recognize the patterns in the tables, create a two-way table, and use relative frequencies to find the possible association between the bivariate data. So let's get started. So when we're looking at parts of the two-way tables, we're going to look at the body of the table and then the margins of the table. So think about the margins of your paper or the edge of the paper. The margins of a two-way table are your marginal frequencies. This is how often, we know frequency is how often something occurs. So the marginal frequency is the totals of how often each category occurs. In this example, we're looking at boys and girls and whether they prefer the clown, acrobats, or elephant tamer at the circus. So the marginal frequency here shows that it occurs that students like the clown, 10 students like the clown, 22 students like the acrobat, and 8 students like the elephant tamer. It also shows that the categorical marginal frequency of boys that were surveyed were 20, and girls were also 20. So these are both examples of the marginal frequencies, how often the totals happen. The joint frequency is the values in the body of the table, these purple values. This is the individual categories. So what you see here is you're going to see that out of all the boys surveyed, 3 liked clowns, 12 liked acrobats, and 5 liked the elephants. For the girls surveyed, you have 7 girls who prefer the clowns, 10 girls who prefer the acrobats, and 3 who prefer the elephant tamers. So the joint frequency is in the center of the graph. It's the frequency of how often each specific category happens in relation to the other. The marginal frequencies is the total of each category. So moving right along with this, how do we complete a two-way table? So in this two-way table, students were polled about whether they owned an iPhone. So we have 7th and 8th grade students and whether yes or no they had an iPhone. So it's kind of like a logic puzzle. If you've ever done a logic puzzle, what we see here is we use what the information we've been given to figure out the missing cells. So the total students asked were 100 students. We can see that 75 of those students were 7th graders. So what does that mean as far as 8th graders asked? Well, 100 students total minus the 75 7th graders gives us 25 8th grade students were surveyed for this question. Okay, we can continue going from here. We can say, all right, well, if I'm looking at the total 8th grade students who said yes, they have an iPhone, total students who had iPhones was 55. 42 of those 55 were 7th graders. So 55 minus 42 is going to give me 13. 13 of the 8th graders said yes to having an iPhone. From there, we can complete the rest of this table. We can look at the rows and we can say the 7th graders, 42 7th graders had iPhones, 75 total were asked. So the difference between the 42 that had iPhones and the 75 total that were asked is 33. 33 students did not have iPhones. For the 8th graders, there was way less 8th graders asked. There was 25 8th graders asked. 13 had iPhones. That would mean 12 do not have iPhones. Okay? And then 12 and students that do not have iPhones with the 33 7th grade students that do not have iPhones leave us 45 students that do not have iPhones. So a couple things I want to point out about these totals. So the total of the students asked, should also add up to the total number of the table. And what's cool about that is that's going to match. So the total of the students asked in each grade level will match the total of students who said yes or no. So 55 and 45 is 100, and 75 and 25 is 100. It's also important to note that these values inside, the 42 plus 13 plus 33 plus 12, will also add up to 100. Okay, that's just the easy way to check that you're doing it right. So it's just using logic. I know a lot of you guys like those kind of like riddles, logic puzzles. This is using that to work with two-way tables. Keep in mind, we're always doing our rows are going left to right. So these are our rows, and then our columns are always going up and down. So our columns are going up and down. So in this case, our columns are saying yes or no, they have an iPhone. Our rows are saying what grade they are in. So when we're looking at two-way tables, the reason we use two-way tables is to help look at the frequency something happens as a percentage or as the probability. So there's two types of relative frequencies we work with. There's whole relative frequency, and that is frequency of the ratio of each cells to the total, so the table total. And then there's conditional relative frequency, and that's going to be the ratio of the total of each row or column in a value in the body of a table. So what does that mean? If we're looking at this, the whole table frequency, okay, whole table relative frequency. In this example, there's male and females, and they surveyed them whether they had an SUV or sports car. So 21 males had an SUV, 39 had a sports car. 135 females had an SUV, 45 had a sports car. The total number of people asked were 240. So the whole relative frequency is the total people asked. If you do the whole relative frequency to the table, it should come out to 1, or we know if we change this into a decimal, this would be 100%. Okay, so whole relative frequency is taking each individual category and comparing it to the total. As you'll notice here, every one of these ratios is to the total number of 240 people asked. And you divide each cell by that total and you get the percentage or the decimal value, and then you can change that into a percentage. So by doing this, I can see that 56% of people asked were females who drove sports utility vehicles. The conditional relative frequency is a little bit different. The conditional relative frequency has us looking more specifically at the value by row or by column. So in this example, we're looking at the value by row. So we're looking at the probability that a male drives a sports vehicle to all total males. So not to the whole table, but just to males. So this one, if we're doing the conditional relative row frequency, we're looking at the frequency as something happens within that row. Okay, so for the female one, we're looking at the frequency that a female drives an SUV to the total number of females asked. Okay, so it's not like we're doing it the whole population, we're just doing that specific population. Okay, you could also do that with the columns as well. If we wanted to, a conditional relative frequency for the columns via this SUV, how many people were male out of the SUV drivers? So we're going to practice this on the next slide. We're going to use this as an example. What we have here is your friends. You survey your friends about the type of social media they like the most. So we ask our male and female friends, do you prefer TikTok, YouTube, or Snapchat? We have our totals. Okay, so these are our joint totals within the center right here. All right, this is our joint frequency, and then our marginal frequency is on the outside here. So the marginal frequency is the totals on the outside. Okay, so we're going to use this to answer these questions. So they're pretty straightforward to begin with, and something like logically we can all use. How many female friends are for YouTube? So if we're trying to read this table, we're going to find YouTube. All right, so I'm going to find the YouTube column, and I'm going to say, all right, here's the YouTube column. All right, and how many of those people are female? So here's the female, or sorry, the YouTube row. Here's the female column. The overlap occurs right here. So we see that you have 11 friends who are females and prefer YouTube. Okay, so I'm going to erase this so we don't have so much on here. Number 2. How many of your friends like TikTok the most? So this is asking for the total friends who like TikTok. So we have, out of the people who like TikTok, we look at that row for TikTok, okay? The total people who like TikTok, there are 6 males and 2 females, so 8 people prefer TikTok. Okay, now we're gonna start getting into percentages and frequencies. So how, out of all your friends, what percentage preferred Snapchat? So this right here, out of all of my friends, this tells me I'm doing a whole relative frequency. So I'm using the total number of friends here to make this decision. All right, so I know the denominator of this ratio is going to be 26. So out of all your friends, which percentage prefer Snapchat? Well, what's the total that prefer Snapchat? 4 people out of 26 preferred Snapchat. Okay, so that is 4 divided by 26, and you guys are allowed to use a calculator on this. So we're going to do 4 divided by 26. We get 0.1538461. We're going to round to the nearest hundredth. So we're going to say about 1,500th of your friends like Snapchat. So that would be about 15%. So this was a whole relative frequency to the entire table. Okay. Number 4 says what percentage of your male friends like YouTube? So this tells me this is a conditional marginal frequency, okay? It's a conditional marginal frequency because it's conditioned on the male friends. We're not looking at all the friends here. We're specifically looking at our male friends, okay? So we're looking at how many male friends did you ask? You asked 10 of your male friends. So our denominator here is going to be 10. Okay, because it's conditional on the friend being male. So out of the 10, how many liked YouTube? Well, 3 out of the 10 liked YouTube. All right, so we're going to divide 3 by 10. I don't need to divide that because I can read that and I know that's 3/10, and I know the decimal for 3/10 is 3/10. Literally, we just write it as 3 in the 10th place of the decimal. So if we change this to a percentage, we're going to move the decimal twice. 30% of your male friends like YouTube. Okay, so it's not 30% of all your friends, it's 30% of your male friends prefer YouTube. Okay, now number 5, compare the percentage of your friends surveyed that are male and prefer TikTok to your friends that are female and prefer TikTok. So here we go. It says compare the percentage of your friends. So again, we're using all of our friends, okay? Because we're using all your friends, and we're looking specifically at the categories of male and prefer TikTok to female and prefer TikTok. So we know we're looking at 2 ratios here, and both of these are going to have a denominator of 26, okay? So the denominator 26 is because you're looking at all of your friends. Now, males who prefer TikTok. Males who prefer TikTok, that is going to be 6 males prefer TikTok. So we have 6 out of 26, and 2 females prefer TikTok. That's 2 out of 26. Again, we're going to use our calculator here. I'm totally fine with using a calculator. Do 6 divided by 26. I'm going to round to the nearest hundredth. I get 23 hundredths. All right, 2 divided by 26. Going to round to the nearest hundredth. I get 8 hundredths. So out of all of my friends, as I change these 2 percentages, okay, so I'm going to move the decimal twice for each of these, I get 23% of my male friends like TikTok and 8% of my female friends like TikTok. So if I'm going to compare these, literally just say, okay, well, more of my male friends like TikTok to my female friends. Okay, 23% of the male friends surveyed like TikTok to only 8% of the female friends like TikTok. All right, so we can just compare and we talk about what we notice here. So it's not hard to do. The big thing you're looking at is determining what your denominator is. Is your denominator going to be your total? Is it going to be your total value? Is it going to be out of all of the people asked, out of the whole entire table? Or is your denominator going to be one of your marginal totals out of a category? Okay, so if it says something like what percentage of people who chose Snapchat, that would be out of the 4 people who chose Snapchat, like we did in example 3. Okay, or actually, I'm sorry, if we did kind of like we did example 4 with the people who preferred YouTube. If it says what percentage of all people surveyed, that's going to be that whole table relative frequency. So whole table is going to be when it's asking about everybody, and we're going to use that total right here, okay? And then this is going to be your denominator if it's whole table. If it's not whole table, if it's a marginal value, then we're going to use those marginal totals. So I hope this helps everybody feel better about two-way tables. I hope we're able to complete a two-way table, identify the parts of a two-way table, and find some frequencies and percentages with two-way tables. Please let me know if you have any questions, and I hope this video helps you understand this better.